Hello, 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 and welcome out to our backgrounds and feats video for the new Player's Handbook 2024. We're going to be going through every single one of the backgrounds, all of the origin feats, and all of the feats, and just how they've changed comparing the old to the new. Up first, we've got the Acolyte, and I encourage you to pause the video if you want to read all the descriptions. I'm mostly going to be going through mechanics and how that's changed. What you'll first notice about all of the backgrounds is that backgrounds now facilitate a couple of things. They give you ability scores, and that's how they define your ability scores. They give you feat options and origin feat out of a selection. They give you skill proficiencies, tool proficiencies, and equipment. Each background does that, giving you different ability scores and different feats. Personally, just on a kind of an overview of the entire thing, I'm not a huge fan of the changeover from ability scores being moved off of the races, now called species, over towards backgrounds. I wish they'd separated them and just kind of kept them away from each other, because I feel like now, say you would like to play a street urchin wizard who is kind of intelligence based, obviously, because you're going down wizard, and you want to focus on the idea of, let's say you've walked past a wizard who dropped a book one day, and this street urchin picks up a book, and flicking through it, they start to learn magic, they start to learn cantrips and whatnot. And now you go to your background, and for you to get the intelligence ability score, you won't be able to get that from Wayfarer, which is the new name for urchin. And you'd have to start looking at stuff like Acolyte and other ones like that. So I wish they'd separated them, but this is something that can be easily homebrewed, thankfully, and something that can be customized yourself. But on the tables where you're strictly just going by the book, it is going to cause some issues if you are trying to make specific characters. But first up is Acolyte. Now, Acolyte gives you the ability scores of Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. It gives you the Magic Initiate feat, which we'll be going after all of the feats after we go through all of the backgrounds. It gives you Insight and Religion. It gives you Calligrapher's Tools, and it lets you choose A or B on equipment. A being Calligrapher's Supplies, a book prayers, Holy Symbol, Parchment, 10 sheets, a robe, 8 gold, or just straight 50 gold. The Charlatan, the con artist, the person that goes around with all the shady deals, that will allow you to get Dexterity, Constitution, or Charisma with the feat Skilled. Skill proficiencies come with Deception and Sleight of Hand, tool proficiency, Forgery Kit, and equipment. You can choose A or B, B being money across the board. Choice A, Forgery Kit, Costume, Fine Clothes, 15 gold, or 50 gold as the other option. The Artisan, specializing in one of your kind of fields of study. Maybe you work in a guild, maybe you've worked in a store or workshop. This gives you the ability scores choices of Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence. The feat is Crafter, which is a new feat. Skill proficiencies, Investigation, and Persuasion. Tool proficiency, choose one kind of Artisan's tools. You'll be able to see that in Chapter 6. And equipment, choose A, Artisan's tools, 2 pouches, Traveler's clothes, 32 gold, or just straight 50 gold. Criminal. The ability score choices here are Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence. Feat, Alert. Skill proficiencies, Sleight of Hand, Stealth, Tool proficiencies, Thieves' Tools, and you can choose between 2 daggers, Thieves' Tools, Crowbar, 2 pouches, Traveler's clothes, 16 gold pieces, or 50 GP. Entertainer's up next. Obviously, kind of names itself, right? This is probably a good pick if you want to go Bard, because it gives you Strength, Dexterity, or Charisma. Feat is Musician, a new feat again. Skill proficiencies, Acrobatics, and Performance. Tool proficiencies, you choose one kind of musical instrument. And equipment, musical instrument, the same one as you chose for your proficiency. 2 costumes, a mirror, perfume, Traveler's clothes, 11 gold, or 50 gold GP. Guard, be a city guard, be part of the city watch. This may be something you'd find if you didn't want to go urchin, but you could go adjacent to. This is probably going to be for your fighters. The ability scores for this one are Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom. The feat, Alert, again. Skill proficiencies, Athletics and Perception. Tool proficiencies, you choose one kind of gaming set. And equipment, you can get a spear, a light crossbow, 20 bolts, a gaming set, the same one as you did for your proficiency, a hooded lantern, manacles, which is fun, quiver, Traveler's clothes, 12 GP, or just your 50 GP. If you're looking for the humble lifestyle, farmer background is the one to do. Strength, Constitution, Wisdom. The feat is Tough, all those time ploughing on the fields. Skill proficiencies, Animal Handling and Nature. Tool proficiencies, Carpenter's Tools. And you get to choose Sickle, Carpenter's Tools, Healer's Kit, Iron Pot, Shovel, Traveler's Clothes, 30 gold, or 50 gold. Guides up next. This one is if you want to play someone who lives on the outskirts of a city and knows the surroundings. You got Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, Magic Initiate, Druid. So it specifically says which one. Stealth, Survival, Tool proficiencies, you get calligrapher's tools, you get a short bow, 20 arrows, cartographer's tools, a bedroll, a quiver, tent, traveler's clothes, and 3 gold. You know, you'd probably be able to spend that on something, or 50 gold. Hermit's back. For this one, if you want to live in the middle of nowhere, you get Constitution, Wisdom, Charisma. The feat is Healer. Skill proficiencies are Medicine and Religion. Tool proficiencies are Herbalism Kit. You choose a Quarterstaff Herbalism Kit, Bedroll, Book, Philosophy, specifies, Lamp, Oil, 3 flasks of it, Traveler's Clothes, 16 gold, or, I mean, I don't even really need to say or, it's 50 gold. That's the B. Noble, grown up in noble society, gives you strength, intelligence, or charisma. Your feat is skilled. Skill proficiencies are history and persuasion. Tool proficiencies are choose one kind of gaming set. And equipment, you get a gaming set, the same as above. Fine clothes, perfume, 29 gold, or, you know, at this point, what ore is. Merchant, constitution, intelligence, charisma. You get the feat lucky, which has been changed. Skill proficiencies, animal handling and persuasion. Tool proficiencies, navigator's tools. You get navigator's tools, 2 pouches, traveler's clothes, and 22 gold. Or your 50 gold again. Sage, this is a good one if you want to pick a wizard. You get constitution, intelligence, or wisdom. The feat is magic initiate, but specifically the wizard. Skill proficiencies are arcana and history. Tool proficiencies are calligrapher's tools. You get a quarterstaff, calligrapher's supplies, a book, history, it specifies, parchment, 8 sheets of it, a robe, and 8 gold, or the 50 gold. Sailor's back as well. We have for this one strength, dexterity, wisdom. You get the feat Tavern Brawler. Skill proficiencies are acrobatics and perception. Tool proficiency is navigator's tools. You get a dagger, navigator's tools, rope, traveler's clothes, 20 gold, or the 50 gold. Soldier, this is probably a common one for your martial types. We've got strength, dexterity, or constitution. The feat is savage attacker. Skill proficiencies are athletics and intimidation. Tool proficiencies, you choose one kind of gaming set again, similar to the guard. And equipment, you get a spear, short bow, 20 arrows, gaming set, the same as you got for the tool proficiency. Healer's kit, quiver, traveler's clothes, 14 gold, or the 50 gold. Scribe, as it says in the description, you spent formative years in a scriptorium. The ability scores for this one, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom. You get the feat skilled. Skill proficiencies are investigation and perception. Tool proficiencies, calligrapher supplies. And you get calligrapher supplies, fine clothes, lamp, 3 flasks of oil, 12 parchment sheets, 23 gold, or you go for your 50. And finally, Wayfarer, the one that has replaced Urchin, gives you a dexterity, wisdom, charisma. You get the feat lucky. Skill proficiencies are insight and stealth. Tool proficiency is thieves' tools. And you get a choice between 2 daggers, thieves' tools, gaming set, any, bedroll, 2 pouches, traveler's clothes, 16 gold, or finally the 50 gold. When you pick your background, you'll be putting 2 points into one ability score and 1 point into another, or a point in all 3 of the options. Now on to the actual feats themselves, the origin feats to begin with. So, I'll be putting up the old version and the new version on the screen, reading out the new version and talking about the differences in my opinion of each. Starting off with Alert. Alert, you gain the following benefits. Initiative proficiency. When you roll initiative, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. Initiative swap. Immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative of one willing ally in the same combat. You can't make this swap if you or the ally has the incapacitated condition. So, pretty drastic from the previous one, which allowed you to give +5 to your initiative rolls. Now your proficiency bonus, the previous one was a lot more front heavy. You're going to get a lot more use out of that early on. This is going to get progressively better and better, eventually getting better than the original feat, but not until the very late levels of the game. Probably won't see as much use. However, it's the second feature. Now, we do lose a few things from the previous alert, with the surprise condition whilst conscious, no advantage against you when something's hidden against you, but I think initiative swap is better. I actually prefer this feat overall, because being able to swap your initiative with someone else is going to be amazing on stuff like the Assassin Rogue, or any class that wants to go early, but also good on classes that want to go late. If you're a healer who's kind of wanting to be more reactive, or your entire basis of your wizard is to be more reactive, you sometimes want to be lower down in the initiative order. Being able to swap with a willing ally is pretty strong, and it gives you a lot more control over the battlefield in general. The previous one, way more situational. So, overall, I think Alert's better. Crafter is an entirely new feat altogether. It gives you tool proficiencies in 3 different Artisan's tools of your choice from the fast crafting table. A discount whenever you buy a non-magical item, you receive a 20% discount on it. Fast crafting, when you finish a long rest, you can craft one piece of gear from the fast crafting table, provided you have the Artisan's tools associated with it, and have proficiency with those tools. The item lasts until you finish another long rest, at which point the item falls apart. Looking at the fast crafting table itself, you've got carpenters, jewelers, leather workers, masons, potters, smiths, tinkers, weavers, wood carvers. I'll let you guys look at that, but for the most part, you can make a ladder, you could probably make some caltrops, make a jug, a grappling hook, shovel, a lot of things which are really situational when you're out and about in the world. I think this feat overall is incredible in the hands of someone very creative, someone who's going to be using that fast crafter table quite a bit. More tool proficiency is always good. I don't know the crafting mechanics because I imagine they're going to be in the DMG. So if there's more complex crafting mechanics, maybe this will get into more use. But on a general basis, being able to quickly make a net is quite nice. I would always probably, I DM myself, so I'd probably always allow players to kind of design that themselves if they had the tools in general. Having a feat here now to have the functionality and actual kind of basis of it is nice. The one thing I don't like about this is the discount. Something I didn't really like about the old backgrounds was this almost power gaming element of your ability where you suddenly have this ability to always get a discount at shops. And the problem I have with this is that you could go into a shop where the owner of it hates you. They don't get along with you at all. You've been rude to them the entire time, and you're expected to kind of give this 20% discount. What I'd probably prefer to do with this is something akin to you can do more with less. Maybe when you go and buy this non-magical items and whatnot, you can buy less and still get the full amount. How would I kind of put that into talking terms? Maybe you could go and buy wood and just create a bucket, and it costs 20% less by doing that. Kind of having a table for that. I think just having a straight discount is a bit awkward at the table, but overall, in the hands of a creative player, I'd say this is a decent feat. Not one of my favorites, though. The healer feat is back with Battle Medic. If you have a healer's kit, you can expend one use of it and tend to a creature within 5 feet of yourself as a utilize action. That creature can expend one of its hit point dice and then roll that die. The creature gains a number of hit points equal to the roll plus your proficiency bonus. Healing rerolls. Whenever you roll a die to determine the number of hit points you restore with a spell, or with this feat's Battle Medic benefit, you can reroll the die if it rolls a 1, and you must use the new roll. Previously, we're going to lose out on Healer's one about using a healer kit and the uses of that. Probably one of those feats that was genuinely missed and glossed over quite a lot. It wasn't super used. This new version, everyone has hit point dice. You can use this across the entire party. If you know that you're not going to be fighting the next day, you can just go and spend a crap load of hit dice on each of your party members. Obviously, this has a lot more mileage on your barbarians over your wizards with a d12 over a d6. But I think the heal in general is pretty nice. Probably the major point of this feat is going to be the rerolling of lower die numbers, ones on your healing dice, especially because it works on spells as well. So this will be good for your healer, clerics, and whatnot. I don't think it's a fantastic feat, but I do think it's useful if you are double downing on healing. I just think from some of these other feats coming up, which you'll see, there is genuinely nothing to gawk over. Lucky has seen some big changes. Luck points. You have a number of luck points equal to your proficiency bonus and can expend the points on the benefits below. You regain your expended luck points when you finish a long rest. Advantage. When you roll a d20 for a d20 test, you can spend 1 luck point to give yourself advantage on the roll. Disadvantage. When a creature rolls a d20 for an attack roll against you, specifically, you can spend 1 luck point to impose disadvantage on that roll. Previously, Lucky is one of those banned feats because it so often comes up as the strongest thing in the game. It is so powerful to be able to roll any d20, re-roll it, basically giving yourself triple advantage. So often DMs like to avoid it. It takes away some of the random of the game, and it can sometimes bog down things and become a little complex. It's very powerful. And because of its power, a lot of people will miss over some of the other more fun feats. I think this Lucky, yes, it's enough. I get it. It's enough. I think it's still extremely good. It works across every class. There's not a single class in the game, not a single subclass in the game that can't benefit off of advantage and disadvantage. There's some like Rogue, which massively benefit off of it. I think it's pretty good still. I think this is solid. You're going to get a lot of luck points. By the time your proficiency is +4, you've got more than the original, and you're getting them back whenever you finish a long rest. So you're by the end of the game, 6 points, it's quite a few. I still think it's pretty good. I quite like the change of this. I think we're going to still see this picked up often. I think it's still going to be one of those sought-after feats, but I still think it's a contender for one of the best Origin feats. It's not the best one. I'll get on to the best one in a second. Magic Initiate is my favorite of the Origin feats, and I'll explain why. 2 cantrips. You learn 2 cantrips of your choice from the Cleric, Druid, or Wizard spell list. Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma is your spellcasting ability for this feat's spells. Choose when you select this feat. Level 1 spell. Choose a level 1 spell from the same list you selected for this feat's cantrips. You always have that spell prepared. You can cast it once without a spell slot, and you regain the ability to cast it in that way when you finish a long rest. You can also cast the spell using any spell slots you have. Spell change. Whenever you gain a new level, you can replace one of the spells you chose with a feat with a different spell of the same level from the chosen spell list. And you can repeat this, getting this feat however often you like. You just have to choose a different spell each time. The reason this is my best. Now, you're going to notice a couple of things are different. The first one, you might say, where's Bard, where's Sorcerer, where's Warlock out of those cantrip lists? Here's why they've changed it. They've got very specific spells. Vicious Mockery, there's a new spell for Sorcerers, and Warlocks have Eldritch Blast. A lot of the time, you might grab this. If you're a Bard and grabbing Eldritch Blast off of the Warlock one, you can use Charisma. In the previous old version, whatever spell list you chose, you had to use their spellcasting modifier. You go into the Cleric spell list, you're now picking between you're going to have to be using your Wisdom spellcasting modifier. So it's really good on a Ranger or a Druid or someone that might use Wisdom. Not anymore. When you choose the spell list that you want to pick from, let's say you choose Cleric, but you are a Wizard, you now get to choose if you want Intelligence for your spellcasting feature of this. That means you can take Cure Wounds and heal the new 2d8 plus 5 if your Intelligence is that, but plus your spellcasting modifier. The amount of opportunities is great. Sacred Flame now as a Wizard will work. A Cleric, outside of just the light domain, can grab Firebolt and actually have a pretty strong upfront ability in combat. It's super good, super versatile. There's loads of spells that you can go through that will benefit off of this. It's pretty viable, especially at this point. If you're a Cleric and you want to grab Shield off of the Wizard, Shillelagh on a Cleric or Wizard. It is so much fun, super versatile. I much prefer this version to the previous version. I think it's going to get a lot of mileage. This is probably the one I'm going to pick pretty much every time when I pick a spellcaster, because there's so many combos, so many variants that you could go through. I could do an entire video just going through different variants, but I love this one. This is my favorite one. Musician, a new feat, and I think it's the strongest one. Instrument training. You gain proficiency with 3 musical instruments of your choice. Encouraging song. As you finish a short or long rest, you can play a song on a musical instrument with which you have proficiency and give heroic inspiration to allies who hear the song. The number of allies you can affect in this way equals your proficiency bonus. You might be asking, what's heroic inspiration? That's just the new term for inspiration in general, the former mechanic for giving out to players as the DM a way of saying, hey, good job, here is a free reroll of whatever you want. Heroic inspiration reads near enough along the lines of, you can re-roll a dice whenever you want, you can only hold on to one of them at a time, you can pass them on to an ally. It doesn't specify a d20. That means you can re-roll d4s, d6s, d8s, on whatever you want. Once you expend it, it's used. This comes back on a short or long rest. Once you get up to +3 proficiency, this is kind of just like getting lucky, the old lucky, but even bigger. Because now you could be like, oh, that guidance rolled bad? Let's throw the heroic inspiration on it. And you can give it out to several people at the same time. This is the strongest Origin feat in the game. I think it's one of the strongest feats in general in the game. I'm surprised it went all the way through. I think it's incredibly powerful, super potent. It replaces Song of Rest for a bard in a big bad way. This idea that you're finishing up your short rest, hear this bit of music, and now you've got this perfect reroll whenever you want for the rest of the day. It's pretty big. So, honestly, do not sleep on Musician. Savage, Attacker, and Skilled are thrown up on the screen, but they are the same as they were previously. They didn't really need much editing. I've also put Tough up there as well because of the same thing. These are 3 which didn't really need changing. They're already pretty solid, clean, good Origin feats to have. Good picks. Now, Tavern Brawler has had some decent changes. Let me just read them first. Enhanced Unarmed Strike. When you hit with your Unarmed Strike and deal damage, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your Strength modifier instead of the normal damage of the Unarmed Strike. Damage rerolls. Whenever you roll a damage die for your Unarmed Strike, you can reroll the die if it rolls a 1, and you must use the new roll. Improvised Weapon. You get proficiency with improvised weapons as before. And Push. When you hit a creature with an Unarmed Strike as part of the attack action on your turn, you can deal damage to the target and also push it 5 feet away from you. You can use this benefit only once per turn. So, Tavern Brawler, seen some minor changes across the board. It no longer gives you a +1 to Strength or Con, and probably mostly going to see this on Monks because it improves Unarmed Strikes. It gives you the rerolls on 1s of an Unarmed Strike, but that's not a massive amount of damage change overall. I mean, not as much so that I would take this feat often. But the grapple part is gone because the grappling rules have changed. Now being able to push them back once per turn is a nice little caveat. I think this feat is okay. It's not bad. I think, again, it's good on a monk. Being able to reroll those unarmed strikes is pretty decent. But for me personally, you've lost the +1 to Strength or Con. It's not a fantastic one. I might be living up in the heavens, but BG3 gave such a great, crazy Tavern Brawler. And I was hoping we'd get something a little more akin to that. But this one is okay. It's okay. It's okay. Now on to the rest of the feats, which all have a prerequisite addition of +4. I'm going to be missing off any feats that are in the book but haven't been changed. This includes Chef, Crusher, or Crusher Piercer, a Slasher, all of those. A few others that haven't been changed. If you don't see it here and you know it's in the book, it means it hasn't been altered, and I've just avoided doing it and covering it. I'm only going to be covering the ones which have been changed, even if they've been just very slightly tweaked. Actor is up first. You increase your charisma score by 1 to a maximum of 20. Impersonation, while you're disguised as a real or fictional person, you have advantage on charisma, deception, or performance checks to convince others that you are that person. And mimicry, you can mimic the sounds of other creatures, including speech. A creature that hears the mimicry must succeed in a wisdom insight check to determine the effect is fake. It's now a DC of 8 plus your charisma modifier and proficiency bonus. So no longer a contested check on that mimicry. And the key thing here, the best bit about this, is the fact that you no longer have to study your target for 1 minute. You now just pick up on the mimicry, the sounds of others and the ability to just copy people you hear. So this one I really do like. It is definitely a buff. Previously, having to study someone for 1 minute can sometimes be a very difficult thing. Now, being able to just purely take on them on a whim, I think it evokes that kind of fantasy actor far more. This idea that you are so good at your craft. You are the professional of your craft. You have a feat in it. You are the best actor there is. And you're going to take on those mannerisms in a second. I mean, previously, what's a minute compared to a second, you know? Who needs that time? Who has that kind of time? Not me. Athlete, I'm not going to read this one out. It's just a very quick, clean change, and that's to the climb speed. It says you gain a climb speed equal to your speed, instead of previously saying that climbing didn't cost you extra movement. Cleaner, it probably has some different parameters in combat that might change it a little bit and how you move around, but overall, the feats pretty much remain the same, and it's okay. It's still okay. Still a decent feat. Charger saw some significant changes. It now gives you strength or dexterity by 1, which you're going to see as a common theme among a lot of the other feats to kind of make them more desirable as a pick. It no longer gives you the dash extra attack. Instead, when you take the dash action, your speed increases by 10 feet for that action. This wording is a little confusing to me. I can't tell if it means that you get 10, say if you have 30 feet, you're dashing to 60 feet if you now have 70 feet, or does it mean that you have 10 feet and that goes to 20 because you're dashing? I think it's the former, but it's a little confusing. Charge attack, if you move at least 10 feet in a straight line toward a target immediately before hitting it with a melee attack, roll as part of the attack action, choose one of the following effects. Gain a D8 bonus, so instead of just getting a +5 to the attack damage roll, or push the target up to 10 feet if it is no more than one size larger than you. And you can only do it once per turn. That wasn't specified previously. Overall, the charge attack's not as exciting. It's a little bit more balanced. The D8 can roll higher, but it can also roll lower. The +5, and you're going to see that as well as a common theme throughout the rest of the feats, is that they've kind of got rid of these flat -5s, +5s, +10s. It's now kind of done through dice rolling or proficiency bonus more often. I think getting extra speed on your dash is nice. That's always a good thing to have more speed. But really, what has been lost is going to be picked up by strength or dexterity, but I do think there's better feats than this. This is just a very flavorful feat still. Crossbow Expert, it gives you the increased your dexterity score by 1 to a max of 20. Ignore loading. You ignore the loading properties of the hand crossbow, heavy crossbow, and light crossbow, all called crossbows elsewhere in this feat. If you're holding on to one of them, you can load a piece of ammunition into it, even if you lack a free hand. Firing in melee is no longer disadvantaged when you're within 5 feet. And dual wielding, when you make an extra attack of the light property, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the extra attack if that attack is with a crossbow that has the light property, and you aren't already adding that modifier to the damage. So a bit of a strange up change here, because it used to be the extra attack on a bonus action. So they've made this one far more of a dual wielding focus. It's still decent. It's still a useful feat in general, but the old one was definitely more applicable. Some of those features of the old one come up a bit later. Defensive Duelist has been totally changed by one small thing. I say small. It's not small. You increase your dexterity score by 1. That's new. Parry. If you're holding a finesse weapon and another creature hits you with a melee attack, you can take a reaction to add your proficiency bonus to your armor class. That was previously the rule, potentially causing the attack to miss you. You gain this bonus to your AC against melee attacks until the start of your next turn. That is huge. Sure, it's only melee attacks, but this is essentially like having a free shield each round eventually, or a lesser version of it. But let's say the average player has 3 to 4 proficiency bonus in their kind of core mechanics of the game, especially past level 4. That's a solid amount of AC to continue onward. I think this is one of the best feats in the game. It's awesome. It's a great one just to keep defensive. It's good on pretty much every character. It's good on rogues. It's good on fighters. It's good on barbarians. It's great on everyone. And dexterity is one of the most sought after ability scores. This is fantastic. It's a great feat. Dual Wielder saw some changes as well. It now increases your strength or dexterity by 1 to a max of 20. Enhanced dual wielding. When you take the attack action and return an attack with a weapon that has the light property, you can make 1 extra attack as a bonus action later on the same turn with a different weapon, which must be a melee weapon that lacks the two-handed property. You don't add your ability modifier to the attack's extra attack unless it's negative. And you can draw or stow 2 weapons that lack the two-handed property when you would normally be able to draw or stow only 1. So this one has taken away that bonus AC and whatnot. It is pretty interesting. It's akin to the Crossbow Expert, and it will still be pretty good as a dual wielder feat. It's similar to the fighting style, of course, and I think it's okay. I really liked the old dual wielder, but I think this one's okay. I still don't think it's going to get a massive pick. I wouldn't probably grab this over a lot of other ones, but I still think it's okay. Durable. Increases your constitution score by 1 to a max of 20. You gain advantage on death saving throws. And as a bonus action, you can expend one of your hit die, roll the die, and regain a number of hit points equal to the roll. This, over the previous version, is so much better. I love the fact that you can just heal across any character. If you're in a campaign where you're not super dungeon diving and you're doing only a few encounters a day, you're going to see a lot of mileage out of this, especially, again, if you have a larger hit die. But this one is solid. It's good on anyone. If you know you're having a long rest afterwards, spending half your hit die so you can regain the rest of them on the long rest is great. A bonus action to expend it. It doesn't add anything to it, but it's still pretty good. I think it's a nice feat to get for just if you're looking just to increase your con and nothing else. This is great. I mean, it works on every character. Grappler now gives you a strength or dexterity score by +1. Punch and grab. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as part of the attack action on your turn, you can use both the damage and the grapple option, and you can use this benefit only once per turn. You have advantage on attack rolls against a creature grappled by you, as previously, and your speed isn't halved when you move a creature grappled by you if they're your size or smaller. This is one of my favorite. The pin move is gone because of the new grapple effects, the new grapple effects being that when you hit someone, you can exchange the damage for a grapple, but with this, you get both. Being able to move them is amazing without having half movement speed. You can go in as a monk with crazy movement speed. You say you have a medium-sized creature caster at the back. You sprint through. You throw in a dash yourself. Smack them once, grab them, hit them a little bit. They get shaken up. You grab them. You just bring them straight back to your barbarian or straight back to your fighter or straight back in just the heat of it. It's great. The fact that this is I feel like this is going to see so much more mileage than the previous one. I think this is genuinely one of the best feats, especially in the hands of a creative player that can really utilize, which I think is the best portion of it, is the fast wrestler portion is amazing. Great Weapon Master saw itself getting probably a nerf that most people will see by, an understandable one. As I said before, they've been getting rid of the -5s to the +10s or the +5s, the straight up rolls instead of proficiency bonus. So let's take a look. Increases your strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20, so that's new, nice. When you hit a creature with a weapon that has the heavy property as part of the attack action on your turn, you can cause the weapon to deal extra damage to the target, and it equals your proficiency bonus. The hue effect is the same as it was before. So, beforehand, the -5 for a +10 of damage came out pretty heavy when you start to get into the later levels, when you start to get plus to your weapons, and you realize that, on average, it's a pretty good trade-off. This one is definitely going to be a lot less damage, but is more consistent. If you are... the previous one was great on the best min-maxes, and it was also a fun risk. The thing I prefer about the old Great Weapon Master is I like risk. I like the idea that you're sacrificing something to get a big reward. This one is just a straight-up bonus, which is fine, but it's not a massive bonus, but you will see some pretty strong damage here. I mean, you put this on a Barbarian, and you're getting the flat rage damage, the flat strength damage, and the flat proficiency now bonus damage on your Great Weapon Master. That's going to add up. You're going to see a lot of damage. It's not a bad feat. It's just not as exciting as it was. Heavily armored, not much of a change here. You can now increase your con or your strength score to a maximum of 20. Heavy Armor Master, similar to Heavily Armored, you can now choose con or strength to get them up to 20. And the damage reduction, when you're hit by an attack while you're wearing heavy armor, any bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage dealt to you by that attack is reduced by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus. Previously, this was 3. So you're going to see more mileage out of this. It's going to get better as you go up levels. That's always nice. It's nice to have that feeling of it going up. It's never going to get that crazy when you're in the time where you're getting hit by ridiculous numbers of dice, losing 4, 5, or 6 damage to those attacks. It'll make a difference, but not a massive one. But I still think that's pretty decent, especially now that you can get con in there as well. But here's one of the biggest points of this, and something you're going to consistently see throughout this book, is it mentions any bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. It doesn't specify non-magical anymore. That means anything that does magical, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage is also reduced by this. That's fantastic. And I think that's going to see some more mileage in general. Inspiring Leader saw a little bit of changes. It now allows you to choose between wisdom or charisma. And also your inspiring speech itself doesn't require you to spend 10 minutes talking to your group. It's just when you finish a short or long rest. So, it's just quicker. And also, if you did choose wisdom, it's the temp HP comes off of that instead of charisma. Keen Mind has been entirely revamped. It now gives your intelligence score +1, as it did previously, but you choose one of the following skills: Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature, or Religion, and if you lack proficiency in the chosen skill, you do gain proficiency in it. If you already have proficiency, Expertise. And Quick Study, you can take the study action as a bonus action. This is stuff like to look at riddles, or to think quickly on your feet to look at history, that sort of thing. So, we've lost all of the flavor. Knowing which way is north, remembering everything in the past month, knowing when the next sunset or sunrise is. These are mechanics which don't really come up often, but in the right hands, they really do. I loved the flavor previously. I feel like those kind of flavors were never broken. It always put it as one of the weaker of the feats if you were just trying to optimize, but it was such a fun, flavorful thing. And it's also, as a DM, fun to fuck with the DM with it, right? Like being able to be like, okay, what time is it in the middle of this cave? This new one is definitely a better feat optimization-wise. Expertise is always going to be great. And the ability to quick study is going to be useful in combat, especially, right? If you are trying to quickly try and decipher a riddle in a combat or a puzzle, or look at the monster type that comes under to nature or arcana. Look at a spell. Someone's casting a spell. You don't want to spend your entire action. It's going to help your action economy. So as a feat in general, and you're going to see this again with Observant later on, these are better, but they've lost a lot of their flavor. Mage Slayer, it now gives you a strength or dex score by +1. Concentration Breaker, when you damage a creature that's concentrating, it has disadvantage on the saving throw it makes to maintain concentration. Guard in mind, if you fail on an intelligence, a wisdom, or a charisma saving throw, you can cause yourself to succeed instead, once per short rest. Overall, they've changed quite a lot of the mechanics. It's no longer a reaction when someone's casting a spell next to you. But it now does mean that you can keep pushing these spellcasters to roll on the concentration. So hitting them more than once. It's great on someone that's hitting a lot of times. This would be really, really, really nice, again, on the new monk. Just the amount of punches you can send out, you're going to be knocking concentration out big time. But Guarded Mind is, as before, it was advantage on saving throws against spells, which was fantastic. I can't tell which one I like more. This is legendary resistance once per short rest. That's on the right saving throw. This saves you. This is incredible. It doesn't require any reaction. It's just a straight legendary resistance. The previous one, you couldn't stack it with something like Circle of Power. So this one, you put Circle of Power on and this, and you're pretty much going to be untouchable. Martial weapon training, as far as I'm aware, I believe this is a new feat. It increases your strength or dex by 1, and you gain proficiency with martial weapons. It's one of those necessity-based feats. Medium Armor Master got itself an ability score increase, strength or dex by 1. And then other than that, it only had something removed, which is medium armor doesn't give you disadvantage on stealth. So that part of it's removed. So if you were looking for that in your character, it's gone. Not a big fan of that. Mounted Combatant, it now gives you strength, dex, or wisdom up by 1. Mounted Strike, while mounted, you have advantage on attack rolls against any unmounted creature within 5 feet of your mount that is at least one size smaller than your mount. Leap Aside, if your mount is subjected to an effect that allows it to make a dex save, it only takes half damage. Evasion instead takes no damage. If it succeeds in the saving throw, only half of the damage if it fails. For your mount to gain this benefit, you must be riding it, and neither of you can have the incapacitated condition. And Veer, while mounted, you can force an attack that hits your mount to hit you instead if you don't have the incapacitated condition. So some changes here. On Veer, they put in the incapacitated condition onto that one. I feel like that was already kind of obvious. Whoever's out there allowing the person to hit them instead of their mount whilst they're knocked out on the back of it, that's crazy. It's crazy. But a couple of little small caveats and language changes here are advantage on the creature smaller than you when you're riding your mount is now within 5 feet. No longer can you do a kind of reach-based attack to get that, which was previously quite strong. Quite a reason people pick this. It's still a very good feat. And the Leap Aside in particular does mention that you have to be mounting it, which, again, crazy. I didn't realize people were doing this without that, but fair enough. Hey, you do you. Observant, entirely changed once again. Now it gives you an intelligence or wisdom score by +1, as previous. Keen Observer, choose one of the following skills: Insight, Investigation, or Perception. If you lack proficiency with the chosen skill, you gain proficiency with it now. And if you already have proficiency, Expertise. And you can take the search action as a bonus action. So getting those perception checks in as bonus actions is very strong. Again, we've now lost, similar to Keen Mind, some flavor here. The +5 passive perception investigation was massive. Technically, if you give yourself expertise and perception here, you're similarly getting that as well, or investigation. But you can't really get both anymore. Again, as a general feat, I think this is going to be probably more useful. Well, maybe not as arguably as Keen Mind's changes were. I think this one is just a change. I feel like there could have been room for both of those feats in there. This could have been named something else. Instead of Observant, this could have been Studious or something like that. And it could have done these kind of mechanics whilst keeping room for something like Observant's previous effects. But I think the thing not to sleep on here is definitely the bonus action ability to search. This is going to help you find creatures in combat. It's similar to how a dragon might use their legendary action to try and do a perception check. This is very useful when you're hunting for hidden creatures, which doesn't come up super often, but when it does, you're going to be a god at it. Poisoner. I won't read the entire thing as it's quite a big block, but it does give you Dex or Intelligence by +1. And the big change here is they've taken away the 14 base DC for when you apply a poison, which always just fell off late game. It's one of the reasons people didn't pick this up. And they've now changed it to 8 plus the modifier that you increased with this feat and your proficiency bonus. So this is great, especially on, with some of the new poison-based spells that have been changed up, and like Ray of Sickness, when to see that. But also great for a rogue now who's going to have their 8 plus their dexterity plus proficiency. The poisons here are only get more potent as time goes on, but the damage does remain the 2d8. Polearm Master, an infamous feat because it's known to pair very well with one Sentinel, as naturally you'd expect it to get nerfed. It didn't. It got buffed. In fact, it got buffed in a way that gives you dexterity or strength by 1. It now allows you to increase your ability score, making it not as much of a sacrificial pick. It's still mechanically, as it was before, very, very strong. Ritual Caster has now also become one of my favorite feats in the game. It allows you to increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1, and you choose a number of level 1 ritual spells equal to your proficiency bonus. You always have those spells prepared, and you can cast them with any spell slots you have. The spell's spellcasting ability is the ability increased by this feat, and whenever your proficiency bonus increases thereafter, you can add an additional level 1 spell with the ritual tag to the spells already prepared with the feature. So a lot more than just the base 2 that it previously came with. It only gets better over time. But here's the best bit. Quick Ritual. With this benefit, you can cast a ritual spell that you have prepared using its regular casting time rather than the extended ritual time. It doesn't require a spell slot, and once you do it, you have to finish a long rest to do it again. Very clean, very cool. It fits the theme. And honestly, this is just a great way to pack out your spell book, which is already increased for most of the classes in this book. Sentinel, like Polearm Master, got itself a little buff by just giving you the strength or dexterity scores up by 1. Sharpshooter, like its melee sibling, has had some significant changes. They've taken away the -5 for the +10, and they've now changed it up so you get your dexterity up by 1 to a maximum of 20. Bypass cover, like it was before. Your range attacks with weapons ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. But the two major changes are being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with ranged weapons. And long shots, attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with the ranged weapons. It isn't as strong as the previous one. It doesn't come with the same risks. I do like this. It gives me Legolas vibes. The idea that you're good across the board, no matter the range of your attacks. And I really do think long shots is going to be something that is going to increase your damage across the board anyway. Because take a short bow, for example. Just being able to do that constantly at long range is going to keep you away from the combat and keep you away from taking damage, keep you moving around the area, give you more spots to hide if you're a rogue. It's just going to be fantastic. I think it's not as exciting as it previously was, but I think it's still one of those feats that you're going to pick up and get into, especially if you're a ranger or a rogue or someone that's going to be using a bow a lot. Shield Master found itself getting a bit of a nerf. It does give you a +1 to strength, which is great across the board for those who... Shield Master found itself getting a bit of a nerf. It does give you a +1 to strength for your ability score, but the Shield Bash feature now requires you to have hit the enemy before you can shove them. Previously, it just said you take the attack action against them. It now does specify and hit. And the interpose shield mechanic doesn't allow you to add your shield bonus to dex saves anymore, which was one of the strongest features of that, especially once you start getting those magical item shields. Skulker, another one of my favorite feats added to this book. Increases your dexterity score by 1 as it previously did. You gain blind sight with a range of 10 feet, which is very strong. Fog of War. You exploit the distractions of battle, gaining advantage on any dex stealth checks you make as part of the hide action during combat. And Sniper, if you make an attack roll while hidden and the roll misses, making the attack roll doesn't reveal your location. They got rid of the lightly obscured stuff and the bit about the dim light, and they've completely overhauled it. Now, the DC for hiding in combat is 15. It's a flat DC in the book, so gaining advantage over that is big. And the fact that you can miss and not give away your location is going to make it so that if you grab this on like an assassin or anything that is going to benefit of that massive advantage, you're going to keep popping off on your sneak attacks each time. I mean, again, this is a rogue feat, right? I'm sure there's going to be many classes that can whip this in a clever way, but this is built for rogues and it is fantastic for them. Blindsight's crazy. Speedy, which was previously known as Mobile, has changed its name. It now gives you a dexterity or con score by +1, and your speed increases by 10 feet as it previously did. When you take the dash action on your turn, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement, as it was before, but opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you. This is a nerf. It previously was that when you take the attack action, whether you hit or not, you can't get hit by attack opportunities. Very strong for just swinging in there. No matter what happens, you just get away from it. That's why it's probably one of the most picked feats, especially for getting around the map. But this one, I think, is still okay. It's still a good feat. Sorry, not okay. It's still a great feat. It's still a really fantastic feat. It's just not nearly as strong as the previous one. And some of the clever plays you could do with the previous one, I'm going to miss. But I think this is probably cleaner to run at a table. It will cause less questions and queries. Spellsniper saw some pretty significant changes. It now increases your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1. You bypass cover, as you previously did. Casting in melee, being within 5 feet of an enemy, doesn't impose disadvantage on your attack rolls with spells. Very strong. And increased range. When you cast a spell that has a range of at least 10 foot and requires you to make an attack roll, you can increase the spell's range by 60 feet. This is going to be something that people go like, what? No longer double. But for all of those spells, which are between like the 10 to 30 feet range, you're going to see some crazy upgrades on those. Let's take Thorn Whip, for example, right? Thorn Whip, you can now do at a massive range. I believe Thorn Whip is 30 feet. So now you can do a Thorn Whip at 90 feet. You no longer have to worry about, I'm going to drag them towards me, but not that close. There's a lot of other little spells in there that you're thinking about. Ice Knife or any of those ones which are 30 feet are now going to be these much stronger from a range. And honestly, even just your range spells, if it's got 120 feet, 180 feet is pretty far. 240 feet isn't that much further back. I prefer this version of Spellsniper. I really do like it. I don't think you really need the cantrip as it previously was. Let's be fair. Most people were just grabbing Eldritch Blast over that. This way, it doesn't really dive into Warlock's class fantasy too much, and it gives you something really refreshing and cool. Warcaster got some very minor changes. Int, Wisdom, or Charisma up by 1, and a very slight bit of a change inside some of the wording. It now specifies that you have advantage on all concentration checks, whereas before it said when you take damage. Now, it doesn't really, when are you really doing concentration checks when you're not taking damage? Not too often. But if some monster had an ability to cause you to do a concentration check, but didn't do any damage to you, you didn't get advantage previously. So a little tiny change of wording there that's going to really be a big help for those minor moments that come up. And finally, Weapon Master, which the previous form of it used to look like what martial training is now. It now allows you to have a strength or dexterity by 1, as it previously did, but your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of one kind of simple or martial weapon of your choice, provided you're proficient with it, and you can change it out on a long rest. So this is playing off the new weapon mastery system, and we'll probably see some great use on the classes which have less free reign over those kind of features. So overall, I think it's a pretty fun one. You can tell I haven't done this in a while because I just did my entire outro and I forgot to click the record button. Overall, I think my opinion on the backgrounds and the feats in this book, to go through them one by one, I think the general feats that we just went over, I do like the majority of the changes. I think a lot of the flavor was taken out, and I'm a sucker for flavor. I will go for flavor over optimization a lot of the time, but I do like to be optimized. But I think some of the stuff like Observant and Keen Mind, albeit great feats now, have lost a lot of their identity, whereas some others have managed to keep it. I wish they kept in some of those features, but I do think the origin feats are very strong. However, you might find that at your table, you suddenly have a lot more entertainers with the musician feat, or every single person turns up as a Wayfarer or urchin in the streets because, hey, it comes with lucky. I kind of wish they separated the feats and the ability scores from the backgrounds. I get it. Your background would define if you have kind of got stronger or you're more dexterous. You have to be dexterous if you're going to be a charlatan, for example. You have to be charismatic. But at the same time, I like the players to decide that. I would like a player to decide, hey, I grew up on the streets, but I was the intelligent one. I wasn't the streetwise smart one. I wasn't the one who was charismatic or the quick stealer. I was the one that read the books. I dreamed of a bigger life. And that's why intelligence has gone up for my background. I wish they had a bit more variety on that and didn't tie it so much so. If I could have it my way, I'd have taken the old features from the old books and just reflavored them. Almost have their unique feats for each of the backgrounds that wasn't a previous feat from the actual book. I wish we had features which just gave a little bit more class identity. Character identity. Something that was a bit more flavorful that you could do maybe once per long rest. It's just a fun extra feature for your background. You know, a street rat being able to hide in a shadow once per long rest or something akin to that. Or being able to communicate with rats. Something weird, something fun. But overall, I do like the changes. I do like the direction that this book has gone in general, and I'm happy with where they're going with the feats, and I can't wait to see if they do more of the feats that were left out of this book in future books. Same with subclasses and everything that was left out. I hope they still design with the similar intentions that they have had for 1D&D or the 2024 handbook. If you have enjoyed this, by the way, please like and subscribe. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm a Twitch streamer. I stream over on twitch.tv/JoeFudge. So check me out on there. I run D&D shows. I talk about Dungeons & Dragons a lot, and I play a lot of variety of games. But I thought, for this new book coming out, I got access to it early. I wanted to do something a little bit more creative, break out into making some videos so I can have something a bit more concrete that people can go over and share my thoughts on. So if you like this kind of thing, give it a like, give it a share, and I'm see if I can do more. Next up is going to be spells, and look over those, and maybe in the future we'll be looking at new books. I'm excited to see what the DMG has in store, especially the Monster Manual. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.